And if you actually listen to his interviews in more detail, you'll find that his views are actually much more nuanced than that. So maybe go and research it. But some of the things that Andrew
Jake,
Tate
I've actually
does
listened
not
to
promote,
him at length. I've actually listened to him at length.
Oh, well, you've strawmanned his position, so maybe listen again.
Hello all, Jace here. Today I'm going to do a video on Jake Rattlesnake. He has a very popular YouTube channel, Rattlesnake TV. This is more, this video is more for me. This is, Jake is somebody who I've really enjoyed watching. I really enjoy his content. I like his takes on things. I don't always agree with him, but it's always based in his faith. It's always based in conservative values. Just somebody who I really like, and somebody who, watching his videos and watching him come up, it was a big inspiration for me to start this channel. So I wanted to do a little homage to him. Now, I would never do a reaction to him reacting to videos. I think that would just be a low bar. But these are a couple of clips on some interviews and some panels that he's been on. I think you guys will enjoy it.
A new shocking report calls violence against women and girls a national emergency. That's as 3,000 offences are recorded every single day.
Well, police chiefs warn that young men are being radicalised online into extreme misogyny by influencers like Andrew Tate, in the same way that terrorists draw in followers.
So are influencers like Andrew Tate radicalising young boys online, and could they even be to blame for rising violence against women?
Well, the writer and broadcaster Emma Webb says influencers like Andrew Tate are promoting misogyny, while the podcaster Jake Julius says boys need more masculine role models. OK, Jake, let's have you put your case first.
Well, I think that the real problem you're looking at here, particularly with the UK, is that you have a feminized liberal culture that has imported a much more masculine culture with mass immigration of Islamic people. And these people have very pronounced ideas about gender roles, and these people don't believe that Timmy can become Tammy if he decides to, if his blue hair Marxist teacher tells him he can. So you guys have a lot bigger problems to worry about than Andrew Tate, so it's laughable.
Okay, I thought this was awesome. I think I might have actually clapped the first time I saw this. I mean, you got to give Jake credit. He did not pull any punches. He walked into this interview swinging. I just thought, most of us would have come in a little more lukewarm, but Jake went straight into it.
Because the problem is, Andrew Tate,
I've seen some of it.
Jake, I've seen a lot of, clips of Andrew Tate, and I've watched some interviews with him, and he seems to almost be radicalising himself. He seems to have gone from sort of promoting, men need to stand up for themselves and be strong partners to women, to actually women are property and women are of lesser value. Do you think that's fair to say that he's got more extreme in his position?
No, I don't. I think, first of all, you have to understand that a lot of what he does is on Twitter. It's comedy. So you have to take it with a pinch of salt. And if you actually listen to his interviews in more detail, you'll find that his views are actually much more nuanced than that. So maybe go and research it. But some of the things that Andrew Tate does not promote...
Jake, I've actually listened to him at length. I've actually listened to him at length.
Oh, well, you've strawmanned his position, so maybe listen again. But some of the positions that he doesn't promote are things like crime, pornography, transgenderism, video games, male feminism, drinking, taking drugs, and also New Age spiritualism. Some things that men are actually turning towards that are actually destructive.
Well, it could be argued that men turning towards forcing women to stay at home and be subjugated in domestic life is also fairly dangerous, perhaps more dangerous than video games.
Wait for it.
Well, this is the thing that obviously you've been feminized by the feminism that is in the water that you drink and the air that you breathe, my friend. But this is the problem with feminism, that they think that women are being subjugated when actually a lot of women would love to stay home. A lot of women would love to be stay-at-home mothers. And actually, it's one of the most difficult jobs that you can possibly do is raise people. So if you raise 3 or 4 people and you're a mother, then you've done an amazing thing. But unfortunately, with messaging like this, the feminist messaging will actually denigrate motherhood. A lot of women won't feel subjugated, I'll tell you that much.
Find it hard to sort of understand how I've been feminized if I think that women have a role in the workplace. I don't quite see how that is more feminine.
Okay, so good stuff from old Jake there. But I will say, the crux of this conversation was about how, misogynists like Andrew Tate are having such a negative impact on young men in Great Britain. The woman who was on the panel as well, unfortunately, she had audio issues. That's why I had to cut her part out. You could barely understand it, but basically what her point was that the guys like the influencers like Andrew Tate are not the larger issue in Great Britain. The biggest issue is all of the Muslim immigrants that are coming in that are misogynists, that are ruining everything for all the good feminists out there. That was more or less what she was trying to say. And so they went back to Jake, and he said a lot of the same with a slightly different point. He did speak to the out of control immigration, but I think on a larger point, I think the biggest concern here, the biggest issue here, is that the popular opinion is that misogyny is bad and feminism is good. I mean, I could go to a room of 20 millennials, and every one of them would probably nod along. That is just definitely not true. There are aspects of misogyny, believe it or not, that are a good thing. There are aspects of feminism that are a good thing. There's out of control misogyny. There's out of control feminism. But misogyny in and of itself is just as necessary as feminism is. I know that's hard for you guys to hear, but it's true. Now, I will say, as far as Andrew Tate goes, I think from what I've seen, I think Jake agrees a little more with more of his philosophies than I do. But a lot of the core principles there are just trying to get young men to stand up and not just accept that being masculine is a bad thing. And we need voices making those statements. Jake is one of them voices. Andrew Tate's one of them voices. Fresh and Fit are some of those voices. I don't agree with everything they say. I probably don't agree with at least half of what they say. But we do need voices telling young men it's okay to be a young man. I personally, I wish everyone would just listen to Jordan Peterson, and the world would be a much better place. But that's not the way the world works. So let's move on to the next one.
Do you consider yourself traditional in all regards? Like, are you conservative or? Didn't she say she was voting for Kamala?
Yeah.
Kamala?
I'm a Republican, but I am voting for Kamala because I don't like Trump.
What? You could just not vote.
Yeah, please.
You said you do political science. What is your political persuasion, would you say?
What do you mean? I just said that I was a Republican. Or what do you mean?
Why don't you like Trump?
Because I think he's a threat to our democracy.
How?
Because he tried to overthrow the government.
How did he try and do that?
By, storming the Capitol? That's not a normal
Is
thing.
MSNBC your favorite news outlet?
Did Trump
No,
storm the
actually, no.
Capitol himself?
He encouraged his followers to.
How?
By
Oh, boy.
tweeting it.
When did he tweet to storm the Capitol?
He tweeted it.
Can you quote it, exactly what he said?
No,
big-
I can't
it's a
quote
big
exactly
allegation.
What he said, but he did that.
Well, that would be mainstream
Can you quote
media.
exactly what he said?
No, I can't.
He said we're going to go down to and we're going to be peacefully marching. That's what he said.
And then people took it too far.
Wait, why would you vote? If you don't like Trump, that's one thing, but why would you vote for a Democrat if you're a Republican?
Right.
Because I think she's a good option, and I think she has the potential to improve our
But-
country.
What has
So just
she
to be clear,
done?
it's not that
3.5
you
years.
just don't want to vote for Trump and that you just don't like,
No, it's not just that I don't like Trump,
you
but
want her, you want her in there over Trump, essentially. And she's a Democrat, but you're a Republican.
it doesn't make sense to vote a sexual assaulter into office either.
Do you reckon that is, even if that were true, do you think that that would affect the way he runs the country and leads the country, and the way he talks with Russia, and the way he talks with China, and the way he doesn't get people into wars, and the way he treats the border and the economy, and the way he treats the education system and taxes?
Yes.
You think that it affects all of that?
Yes.
Don't you do political science? Mm-hmm. How does it affect that?
Mm-hmm. It affects the way he feels about an entire gender. If he is sexually assaulting people, then he.
So what I said was, how does it affect the border? How does it affect his relationship with Putin and Xi and Kim Jong-un? And how does it affect the economy?
Economics and education as well. That's what it has to do with.
Okay,
But it all ties together. These are.
how does that particular thing, the one? I mean, by the way, that's not a very heinous comment. If you hear the way the guys talk when girls aren't around, it's really nothing.
Unfortunately,
so if you,
but it is.
If you
So I
hear
have to accept that because it's not.
You
like,
don't have to
normal for you
accept
guys?
it.
I know that you guys probably wouldn't with your girlfriends. You guys say some ratchet shit, by the way. I know what you girls get up to behind closed doors. You guys say some crazy shit.
You're making an
us-
assumption about my character
Us-
without knowing.
I'm just saying girls in general. Okay, maybe you're a perfect little angel who has never said anything bad in your life, and if you are, then I'd be very, very proud to be in this room with you right now. But me, I'm not. And when guys get together, when we're behind closed doors in Boise situations, shit gets a bit wild. And Trump thought,
And it
Trump
doesn't
thought he was with one of
justify
the
it.
boys.
Okay, I selected this little clip because I just think it's such a perfect reflection of 90% of the Harris voters in this election cycle. And I cut most of it out because it took a really long time for them to get nowhere. This little girl had no idea. She couldn't point to a single policy. She couldn't point to anything that Harris or Biden and Harris had done that was a net good for the country. She could not point to any tangible reason why she would vote for Harris over Trump other than she doesn't like Trump. And that is a large majority of the Harris voters are people who don't like Trump. On a side note, I think that's what's wrong with our current primary system. I wish the general public would play a larger role in the primary process, because what you end up with is the primaries are just the always Trumpers on the right voting and the never Trumpers on the left voting. And that's true regardless of the election. You've got the hardliners who take part in the primary system and select the candidates that the rest of us end up voting on. I think if the general public played a larger role, I think those candidates would probably be very different. People who would be much more palatable to the larger population. But as to this, I think Jake had a good point. And I think it's what we all have to deal with right now with Trump is, okay, as a moral human being, is this someone that you like as a person? And most of us would say probably not. I would say probably not. But I did love his policies when he was in office. He did a great job. I am voting for policies. I really liked his policies, and Harris's policies scare me to death. So that is what I'm basing my vote on. And that's what most people are going to be basing their vote on. If it's a pro-Trump vote. But I will say, I think it's interesting, this whole debate and Brian's reaction in the beginning about it. It's unthinkable today to think that a Republican would vote for a Democrat and vice versa. I just think that's funny because, I've got a couple of decades on everyone on that panel. So I grew up in a very different political climate. There wasn't nearly as wide a chasm between Republican and Democrat whenever I was a kid. And my parents' generation, if you were to look back at the, mid 60s and before, there was very little difference between a Republican and a Democrat. You were voting for 2 or 3 key policies. It was not unheard of for someone to cross party lines and vote at all because you aligned with these 2 or 3 core policies that this particular candidate supported. It's not that way anymore. I mean, I will say the right, I don't think the right's moved a ton, but the left has gone so far left. It's unthinkable today. I think if people were to go back, the kind of the Democrat poster boy is John F. Kennedy. If people were to actually go back and listen to some of his speeches, they would probably think he was a Proud Boy, compared to today's Democratic Party. It's crazy how far they've shifted. But back in the day, there wasn't that big a difference, and you could absolutely see a situation where you, as a Republican, would vote for a Democrat. I just think that's humorous. But let's move on to the next one.
Andrew would be here. My main beef was the idea that women shouldn't be allowed to vote. I mean, that's
not my position.
No, I know that's
not my position.
Yeah, so that was
Andrew's
what.
not here,
Yeah, that was
so.
what that's what I took issue with.
Why should they be able to vote?
You're not serious, right? We're not going to have this.
Oh, if you want to have
Are we
the
really gonna
if you
do
want to
it?
have the discussion, let's do it.
Really?
I think we should.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Should women be drafted?
No, I said I don't want to be drafted.
Let the veteran
But that's
answer
not-
that
that's-
question.
But
we're going to keep on, if you're going to do this, we're going to have to keep on the subject. So voting, meaning what do you mean that women, first of all, let me ask you, what's your position?
no, I'm asking you your position. You're the one who wanted to talk about it. I'm happy to steel man it. So why should they vote?
Well, I think that, first of all, it's a bizarre notion that the United States government or any other Western country would ever take a woman's right to vote away from her. It's a nonsense conversation that seems to be clicks for cash kind of conversation, because it's never going to happen.
You're still not giving any reasons.
It's never going to happen. Under
it's happened
our
a lot of times in the
Constitution,
past, and most countries in the world, women
our
don't
Constitution
vote.
does not allow for that. Our Constitution says that men are created equal. Men and women are created
Right. So
equal.
should we draft women? Should we draft women?
Listen, if you want to draft women, you can. You can talk to President Trump or President Harris, whoever is in charge, if you want to do that. But what we're talking about is, can women vote?
Yeah. So once again, what's the reason why women should vote?
Because they're a human being.
So
they
you-
contribute to society.
Okay, let's take it one by
They
one.
have
One by one.
brains.
Human being. Should
Okay.
infants vote?
Yes. So, first off,
Hold it into the mic.
women are half of this population. They have a right and they have a say, and they deserve to be represented
Why?
because they are half of this population. They are human beings, and our Constitution says that we are equal. And not only that, but society, Western society, this is a regressive idea that women should not be able to vote. And what it would take...
Regressing to what exactly? You're saying 10 things. We need to take it one by one because
Okay.
you're spurging. So regressing to what?
Regressing to 100 years ago, over 100 years ago.
Is that a bad thing?
Yes, it is.
Would you say morally we're better off now than we were 100
But
years
we're
ago?
not talking about that. We are not talking about the effects of women being able to vote and extrapolating that to where we are morally as a society. Because Hitler also happened when women were able to vote.
So if you look at how women vote,
I mean, what do you want to... I mean, what?
No, I just want you to lay out a logical argument as to why
I mean,
women should vote.
we drawn
Because you've
two
said they're
bombs
humans.
on
You said they're
Japan
humans.
when
Hold on
women
a second.
were able to
You said
do
they're
it.
humans. Infants are humans. Should infants be able to vote?
No.
Okay, cool.
People who...
What's the next one?
Wait,
you need to
no.
take it point by point. You're doing a lot of talking, but not making too much sense.
Okay.
Women are humans. Okay, not a good reason. What's the next one?
No, but that is a human right. That's what I meant to say.
Okay,
It
so-
is a human right to be able to vote. So we can just scratch that I said women are humans, and we'll
A
just
human
say
right to vote
it is a
according to who?
human right to vote.
According to
I
who?
think women should be able to vote, and for the sake of this being clipped, I don't think you're doing a great job at all of explaining why women should be able to vote, because now people are going to see them and be like, that's why women shouldn't vote. They can't make up their mind.
Okay,
I mean,
so
that's
let
not
me,
a good
okay,
job
well, let
at
me
all.
be well,
Women should
thank
be able
you for
to
your
vote,
contribution. But let me be
She's
clear.
making more
I
sense than
mean,
you.
Right.
there's
Well,
so many
probably.
reasons I can name. please do a better job. You're representing women that when this is clipped and people are saying this is why women shouldn't be able to vote. Like, there's so many reasons.
Okay, well, you tell me.
We're a part of this society, and we do make up a big population, but we're also part of this society. We work, we contribute, we pay taxes. We're forced to pay taxes. We go through the education system. We make decisions about our children, and we want the best for our kids. That's why we vote. So we.
Should we take it one by one?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, first one. You work and pay taxes.
Correct.
14-year-olds work and pay taxes. Should they vote?
I think the age is 16 to work but.
Should they vote?
What?
How old do you have to be to vote?
18.
Why can't 16-year-olds vote? They work and pay taxes.
Because they're just working and they don't
That's a straw
understand the
man.
system.
You know it.
How's it a straw man?
Because you know that the voting age is 18. So
It's called logic.
it's a cluster of things. So the fact that it is our human right to be able to vote.
No,
the
it's
fact
not.
that we
According to who?
contribute to
You know, you
according
made
to-
a claim. You made a claim. You have to substantiate that claim. Where is this human right?
Okay, so I didn't
Tell
say
that to the people of
but I
Tajikistan.
would say that to
Tajikistan.
Okay, so I think this is a perfect example of the lack of the ability for people in America to think critically, to think logically. It's been reinforced to think and behave emotionally to such a degree that the idea of thinking logically is impossible for people anymore. Some people are always going to think emotionally, but we've lost the ability to think rationally, to think logically, and to think critically. And what you're seeing here is Jake trying to debate with people who are incapable of participating in an actual debate. And you can see it. She wanted to have a conversation with Andrew Wilson because Andrew Wilson does not think that women should vote. She does not understand the concept that Jake, who may not even share that idea, can still man an argument and debate on the side of that point. Now, and I think this goes back to, I think we need to reintroduce debate to high schools. I think I think it should be mandatory learning for high school students, because when you're on a debate team, you're given a topic and you're pro and you're con. None of those people, it doesn't matter if they agree with that topic or not. They're still, or disagree with it. They're still expected to argue vigorously in support or in opposition to that topic. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to be an expert. You can think a process through without believing in it wholeheartedly. And that's what Jake is doing. And what he's trying to get these people to understand is, you need to give me a compelling argument why. The fact that you're a human being is not an argument for being able to vote. Lots of human beings can't vote. If you've been convicted of a felony, you can't vote. You're still a human being. If you're under 18, you can't vote. You're still a human being. To the other person's point, you still pay taxes, quote unquote. We'll get into that in a minute. But that's not an argument for. It's just not. The fact that there are lots of you is not an argument for why you should be given the right to vote. Now, I've got my own philosophy on that, and it's probably, equally unpopular. But as far as I'm concerned, sex should have no impact on whether or not you should vote. To me, it all comes down to, if you're going to vote for the leaders who shape our policy, you should have skin in the game. That means every single person in order to register to vote, you should, number one, you have to register for selective service. Now, I don't want women in the draft. Or, well, I don't want women on the front lines. But if there was ever a time, which I don't see it ever happening again, but if there was ever a time where things were bad enough that we actually had to reinstitute the draft, there's going to be plenty of others, going to be plenty of support positions, manufacturing positions, things like that, that women could go into that does not put them directly in harm's way or on the front lines or in there side by side fighting with men. I don't want that. But that doesn't mean they couldn't serve if things ever got that bad. So I think they should have to register for selective service. And I think you should have to show that you net pay taxes. You know, what a lot of people say is, I have a job, so I'm paying taxes. No, you don't. The vast majority of Americans do not pay taxes. By the time you're done, when you file your tax return at the end of the year, if your tax ends up being zero and you get everything back in your return, you did not pay taxes. The government held your money for a little bit and then gave it back, often even more than what you paid in. If you get government assistance, that needs to be deducted. So you should have to net pay taxes. So I think anybody who's going to vote, you should be able to say, I'm electing my leaders because, number one, I'm paying for it. Number two, if you're going to ask me to go and serve my country, then I should be able to have a say in who those people are making those decisions. And that does still include me. I would be way too old to be in the draft, technically. But I would still, I am registered for selective service. I did when I was 18 years older. I think back then it was, I think you actually register when you're 17 years old. I registered. And if it ever came to that, they could absolutely call me to service to perform some function. Physically, I wouldn't be able to go in there just like a woman. I wouldn't be able to go in there on the front lines and fight. But they could find something for me to do, and I would go do it. So that's my stance on voting. But the larger point when it comes to this conversation is just people don't know how to think critically. They could not tell you what their criteria are and how their criteria fit into the argument. To allow people to try to shoot holes in it and to be able to defend the opposition, they can't do it. You could come to me and argue against what I just said. You may be, we may not ever see eye to eye, but I'll be able to defend my position. I'll be able to tell you why I'm saying it and why it would not fit anywhere else. I'd be able to do that. I think that's something that we need to learn. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to put a link to Jake's YouTube page in my description. Not that anyone needs it, but I'm going to go throw it in there anyway because it's just he's a guy that I respect, and I think everyone will learn from watching his videos. So God bless you all. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll see you for the next one.